investors also keeping an eye on what's happening with Elon Musk's moves in the federal government. The DOGE government efficiency effort could lead to a $5,000 cash rebate for taxpayers, but that may be too good to be true. Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman joins us now with more. And Rick, we've been hearing a lot about this rebate. Michael Darda, who we spoke with earlier, he called it a gimmick. What say you? Help us make sense of all this.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think Trump needs to get some good press here, and this sounds like something that might amount to some positive spin. First of all, the premise for this $5,000 rebate is that there will be $2 trillion in annual savings that DOGE is going to somehow find. The whole federal budget is $6.7 trillion. And if you found $2 trillion, you'd be having to do stuff like cut Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, which is just not going to happen. Musk himself, Elon Musk, has lowered the target. His original target was $2 trillion. His target now is $500 billion. So that's just 1/4 of the number that $5,000 rebate is based on. So cut the rebate by 75%, and 5,000 is now 1,250. But budget experts don't even think Musk is going to come close to $500 billion. They think he'll be lucky to get 1/10 of that, or $50 billion. And now you're talking about what's basically a meaningless amount of money rebated to consumers. Plus, guess what happened when Joe Biden sent those famous stimmies out to everybody in 2021? Those were actually the third round of stimulus checks during COVID. We got inflation, which went all the way up to 9% in 2022. So if Trump finds he's not able to send out these $5,000 rebates, maybe it will mean he's getting lucky, because it will be one less inflationary factor in the Trump economy.
Right, and that was one of Michael Darda's objections to that as well. You know, at the same time, we've got Howard Lutnick being sworn in as Commerce Secretary right now, and apparently one of his comments is, and he's echoed something that President Trump has been recently bringing up. He said the goal is to balance the budget. Rick, I know you've been looking at.
Sorry, that's not the goal. That is not the goal.
Tell us.
If the goal were to balance the budget, we wouldn't be talking about another round of tax cuts. That is, the math is straightforward here. The tax cuts, just extending the Trump tax cuts, is going to add about $4 trillion to the national debt over a decade. Trump has another 12 or 13 tax cuts that he promised on the campaign trail. If we get all of those, it's going to add $10 trillion to the national debt. That's $1 trillion per year. These guys are not serious when they say they want to balance a budget. And by the way, here's the real tell. If they were serious, they would not be gutting the Internal Revenue Service. The IRS says there's a so-called tax gap, which is the amount that taxpayers owe but they don't pay, which could be as large as $500 billion a year or more. That's money, that's not raising taxes. That's tax money that people owe and they're trying to dodge. If you cared about the balancing the budget, you wouldn't be getting rid of the tax police who go out to find that money. You would probably be adding more tax police. So there's no evidence that these guys are remotely serious about balancing the budget. By the way, Joe Biden wasn't either.
Well, nobody has been in a long time, Rick. But, you know, on the flip side, there are some proponents of this administration's policies. I haven't heard the phrase pro-growth thrown around as much lately, but certainly in the wake of the election, that was a phrase that was front and center for the market bulls, that this administration's policies were going to be pro-growth, and that the sort of budget imbalance would in part be made up for by that growth. What is that outlook looking like at present?
Yeah, I mean, so there is some. I would get away from the phrase pro-growth because you're getting into the sort of the supply side economics, which basically never work. The idea that if you just unleash businesses, they're going to generate all this growth and it's going to trickle all the way down. That basically doesn't happen. But deregulation is one place to look. I mean, that's not necessarily a bunch of smoke and mirrors. If you do deregulate, you make it easier for companies to do business, their costs go down, and that would help economic growth. You know, another big one here is permitting reform, which everybody talks about. It turns out it's really hard to do. So what Elon Musk is doing, just going through the bureaucracy and like taking a jackhammer and lopping off like 1/3 of every agency, that is not going to do anything to solve permitting reform. Permitting reform, it's a huge issue in energy, whether it's fossil fuel energy or green energy. It matters for both. It's the reason we can't build pipelines. We can't build new electricity connection mechanisms. Guess what? We need the federal government to get more involved and solve the problems at the state and local level, create incentives for states and cities to make those decisions faster. Housing is another one. We know there's tons of permitting issues getting more housing built. There's nothing that's coming out of Trump so far that will address that. So, yeah, deregulation will be pretty good. Tax cuts, yes, there will be some growth, but when the deficit goes up, I mean, we got a bigger corresponding problem there than we have ever had with the effect on the bond market and 10-year Treasury rates, which you've already been talking about. And I've been talking too long about all these problems, so I'm going to send it back to you guys.
We look forward to many future columns on all these issues.
I'm on a roll, but I mean, we got 4 years here.
I love it. Rick, yeah, you got to save a little bit. All right, thanks a lot.